Most sales are lost because you're giving up on your prospect well before they've actually said no to the thing that you're selling. This is what I mean. See, I was coaching a closer yesterday. He was honestly a really good guy. Smart, good energy, knows all the lines, but he kept losing deals after the pitch. So I role played with him, trying to figure out what was going on. And he pitched me, and to be honest, it was good. And I said, okay, man, it sounds good. I guess I'm just wanting to finish this course I bought first, then maybe we can talk. And you know what he did? He said, okay, cool, man. When should I follow up? Done. Over. He gave up. He thought he was being respectful, but he walked away from a deal that was very close in his grasp. Here's what giving up too early looks like. The prospect says something like, I need to think about it, or I want to try this on my own first, and you accept it at face value. You say, okay, no worries, man. Let me know when you're ready. And you think you're being polite. But what you're actually doing is you're letting them talk themselves out of the sale, because the second you get off the call, they're not thinking about you anymore. They're thinking about life. They're thinking about everything else that's going on. You're at the back of their mind. But here's the thing. How do you know if you're giving up too early or just respecting a real no? Because there's a difference between being too pushy and being persistent. And most people, they get it backwards. But I had a guy on a call once. After the pitch, he said, I don't know, man, I'm just not sure. And I asked him, what are you not sure about? And he paused. Then he said, I guess I'm just scared. Like, what if I fail again? That's it. It wasn't a no. That's fear. And fear is something that we can work with. Fear is something that I love to handle. But if I would have just said, okay, cool, go away and think about it, I would have given up on a guy who actually wanted help, but just needed someone to sit there with him for a minute to figure this out. And here's how you know the difference between a real no, because that sounds like, hey, I don't want this, I'm not interested, please stop talking. That's clear. It's done. But most of the time, what you're hearing isn't a no, it's uncertainty, it's fear, it's logistics. And if you can't tell the difference between them, you're going to walk away from deals that you should be closing. So stop accepting the first objection at its face value. I want you to probe. I want you to ask questions. Get clarity, because most people don't actually want to say no. They just need your help to get them to say it yes. All right, so you know the difference now. But what do you actually say when someone gives an objection? Here's one thing I do on every single call that most closers skip, and it's the reason I close deals other people lose. It's called pacing the first objection. See, when someone gives me an objection right after I drop the price, and it's anything besides, yes, I want to do this, I pace the objection, which simply means I tie down and see if the thing we just went over is for them. Then I isolate whether it's logistical or fear. If it's both, I handle logistics, then I handle fear. If it's just fear, then I go straight into fear. Okay? But what that kind of sounds like is, if a prospect, I just pitched them and they said, hey, I want to think about it. I just say, of course, man. Just so I'm on the same page, like what's kind of coming up for you? And if he said, I don't know, I just need time, I'd then say, yeah, I get that. But usually when someone says they need time, it's because something's unclear or a bit of, fear popping up. Which one is it for you? And he kind of laughed. And then he's like, yeah, you know what? It's probably fear. And then from there, we had a real conversation about the fear, and he ended up buying. But here's what to do, right? When someone gives you an objection, I don't want you to just accept it. I want you to get curious. I want you to probe. Ask what's coming up for you, or what are you hoping to get out of thinking about it? Because most of the time, they're going to tell you the exact real issue. And once you know the real issue, you can handle it. But if you just say, okay, cool, take your time, or hey, what's kind of popping up for you, right? And you don't really dive into it. You stay shallow with it. You'll never get there. So stop giving up on your prospects. Start probing. Sit in the pocket. Let them talk. And you're really going to be surprised how many more deals that you can close. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what if I'm already doing this, Liam, and I'm still losing deals? Here's a quick test. I want you to ask yourself, think about the last deal you lost. Did you probe the objection or did you just accept it? Did you give up on the person when they didn't actually say no, but you mentally checked out? Because I reviewed a call from one of my clients and the prospect said, hey, I need to talk to my wife. And the client said, sure, no problem. When should I follow up? The three of us can have a chat. And it was done, right? But here's the thing. That's okay. But he never asked, well, if your wife was here right now, what do you think she'd feel about this? How do you think she'd feel? What do you think she'd say? He just accepted the objection and walked away. He didn't get clarity on the situation. And the prospect, he ended up ghosting him because the real issue wasn't his wife. It was fear, but he never found out the fear because he gave up too early. So here's the test. Think about the last 3 deals you lost and ask yourself, did I probe the objection? Did I get clarity before I answered? Did I get clarity before I dived into the next thing or set up the next meeting? Did you ask follow-up questions? Did you sit in the pocket and let them talk? And if you did the latter, right, you just walked away. You said, hey, see you later. You're giving up too early. And look, it's costing you. So from now on, every time you get an objection, I want you to ask yourself, how can I actually handle this? Or did I just accept it? Right? We don't want to just accept things. Because if you haven't handled it, you're leaving money on the table. And speaking of money, let's talk about how much this is actually costing you. Because every time you give up early, you're not just losing a deal, you're losing every deal after it. See, I had a client who was closing about, 20% of his calls. And he thought that it was just his close rate, right? But when I reviewed his calls, I realized that he was giving up on about half of them. So he'd get an objection, he'd accept it, and he'd move on. So I said, what if you didn't give up on those? What if you stayed in the pocket? What if you stayed in the pocket and you actually tried to handle the fear that was popping up? And he tried it. His close rate went from 20% to like 35% in the span of 2 weeks. That's a 75% increase on his close rate. And for him, that meant an extra $10,000 a month just by not giving up. So here's the math. Let's say you take 20 calls and let's say you close 4 of them on average, 20%. But what if you're giving up on 10 people of those calls that you could have closed, right? If you just stayed in the pocket, if you just didn't give up before they did, and you handled the objections, you could close maybe another 2 or 3 more, right? That puts you on, instead of 4, 6 or 7 for the month. That's a 50 to 75% increase in revenue just by not giving up. So stop thinking, oh, they said no, so I'll just move on. Start thinking, they said no, what's actually going on? Because that shift alone will change your income. Now look, if you've been enjoying this, if you're sitting here thinking, I need to stop giving up on my prospects, I know I'm just leaving money on the table. Okay, this is exactly what I do in my coaching. I walk through examples like this. I teach you live. I coach you on it so we can get you to become the closer that you're meant to be. And hey, if you're thinking, I don't even know what remote closing is, first off, how the hell did you get to my channel? But secondly, have a chat, see if this is going to be the right thing for you. Check out the podcast with all these different people who have gone through it and see if it's the right thing. It's a beautiful place to be. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you next time.